Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back for another episode of RBP. I am Ross Bolen, here as always with my co-host, Jared Borislow, J-Bone. Mr. Borislow, how was your weekend?
It was great, Ross. The viral TikTok hot boy swag still courses through my veins.
Yes.
We hit 3 million views on one TikTok.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
At the Ross Bolen podcast on TikTok, where Jared is doing work.
Yeah, I spent like 30 minutes making this reel and posted it, and then now over 2.5 million people have seen it. So
Yeah.
what a bizarre time to be alive.
Good stuff. Jared, you want to know what I did this weekend?
What'd you do?
I ate old bread and destroyed my own stomach. Gut health at an all-time low after the weekend. It's time to build back from here.
I'm old bread.
Exactly.
You ever ate bread from a shoe?
It's the Old Greg remix. Jared, we have guests today.
Yes.
Awesome guests. Can't wait to get them in here. We're going to be talking about the age of OnlyFans today. Very excited for the show. But first, today's episode is brought to you by MyBookie, our sponsor for all your sports betting needs. You simply go to MyBookie.ag to access their incredible website with all the lines, live bets, props, and futures you could possibly imagine. If you like sports,
I like sports.
if you bet on sports, and you need an incredible platform on which to get your action and support the podcast at the same time, it's MyBookie.ag. Use the code RBP on sign up, and you'll get a deposit bonus match up to $1,000. Stipulations apply. That's MyBookie.ag, code RBP upon sign up for all your sports betting needs. If you love sports and you love betting on sports and you're not doing it with MyBookie, I don't understand you. Support the show, MyBookie.ag, code RBP. Deposit bonus up to $1,000. Stipulations apply. MyBookie.ag, code RBP.
Is it yourbookie.ag or mybookie.ag?
It's our bookie, but it is MyBookie.ag. First segment. The age of OnlyFans. Today, we are joined by Mercedes Terrell and Jade Bryce. They've been here before, not your first time. You might know these two from the world of MMA, where they spent over 12 years as ring girls for Bellator and Invicta, or maybe for modeling or social media in general. But they've taken what some would call like a one-dimensional type of career and tackled some of the toughest issues we face as humans with their podcast, The Magic Hour, spelled M-A-J-I-C. They've also created a men's workshop called Awakening the King Within, which we will discuss at the end of today's show. Ladies, a lot has happened in the world since we last spoke, right? First off, did either of you watch the Jake Paul fight over the weekend?
I watched the highlights.
Okay.
We know Ben Askren pretty well, so...
Askren owes me money, I feel, after what occurred. First of all, I paid $49.99 to watch this thing. The spectacle in and of itself was insane.
It surpassed Mayweather and McGregor pay-per-view purchases, yeah.
That cannot be right.
Yeah, it's true.
What? But Askren clearly, I don't believe that, but Askren clearly, he had absolutely no intention of making this a legitimate fight. This was like the second one in a row where I've watched this YouTube dude, Jake Paul, knock out some guy who clearly had no interest in actually fighting him. So it was just kind of bizarre. Also, Oscar De La Hoya, famous boxer, was one of the many, many commenters they had. They had like Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, E40, Oscar De La Hoya, Mario Lopez. But Oscar was very, very high. Snoop made everyone smoke weed. So the entire commentating cast was it was a mess. Bieber sounded like he was coming off the back end of like a cold and or like a very serious case of depression and didn't feel like being there at all. The whole thing was just weird, but like I was, by the end of it, and now that I've had a couple days to process it, I loved it. I just don't understand.
I love Askren's wife, but we sat cage side for a lot of his fights, and I dreaded any time he was going to get in the cage because it was just the most boring fights for me. I've never liked his style of fight.
I mean, he's a wrestler.
Yes,
you know,
much more wrestler, which is again why.
But he was our champ for so long. So, yeah.
I love Ben because he's a big disc golfer.
a disc golfer. Yeah, that makes sense.
Love Ben for that. Yeah. But I feel like he was more into disc golf and Bitcoin than he was into training for this fight.
He definitely was. The big thing we wanted to discuss with y'all today is the rise. And now what I would say is straight up, like, it's fair to say we've entered the age of OnlyFans. For the uneducated, OnlyFans is a premium subscription content platform like a la Patreon, which is what we use for our purposes, for people who want to support creators, artists, models, dancers, etc., in exchange for content. And in many cases, like a more personal interaction experience with people you're a fan of, right? So first question is, at what point did y'all realize, like, okay, maybe this OnlyFans thing is for real something we need to take a look at?
I had a girlfriend who was like, hey, I'm on this platform. I don't know if it's something you're cool with because it has a bad rep. Yeah, hi, Kayla. But it's making me money and it makes sense.
So what do you mean a bad rep?
So yeah, that's a good question. So OnlyFans, if anyone's heard the term by now,
everybody knows it.
They know it's related to like sex work. What I think happened, and I can't, you'll have to confirm this as fact, but what I think happened is when COVID hit, it really picked up in the sex work industry because suddenly guys weren't able to go.
Strip clubs were closed. Yeah.
You need somewhere to make up the revenue that is being lost by not being able to go do your
still
job.
Needed to make money. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So. And dudes who would normally be frequenting those places needed a place to go do that.
That were at home a whole lot.
So OnlyFans blew up.
Yeah.
And we now, and so like just to catch you to speed on our little journey into OnlyFans, I consider myself a sex worker because I work in an industry where my sexuality is on the forefront. Like this is a very sexy culture that I've been, displaying myself on for many years.
You've done this for, you're speaking to OnlyFans specifically right now, but like modeling, the cage girl stuff.
Yeah, it's not that different from Instagram. It's just we're getting paid for it now. And we are actually answering the DMs, whereas like on Instagram, we typically don't go in the DM section.
And it's kind of fascinating that when you start getting paid for sexy photos, suddenly it's a shameful thing. It's like you
when
can
you're
post
doing it
the opposite of the way it should. It makes no sense. We talked about this with like even related to TikTok recently. We were like, this is such a gateway to porn.
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh yeah.
Every third video is sexy as fuck, and it's like, why is this the way? Why is this? It's every platform though. Like that's the thing about the bad rep of OnlyFans, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Every platform we use is mostly about sex at the end of the day. Like Instagram, if you want your Instagram to be sexy, it can be sexy.
You'd probably see more porn on Twitter than you would on OnlyFans.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know about more than.
A lot of porn on Twitter.
Yeah.
Turns out.
Yeah.
It's where Ted Cruz watches porn.
It is where Ted Cruz watches porn.
It is, for real. It's where a lot of politicians watch porn.
I just think it's interesting that we have this like part of our culture that says women shouldn't be paid to show sexy stuff or do porn or any kind of other sex work. It's like, why are we not allowing that to be a valuable thing? Obviously, men find it very valuable, as we can both attest to.
What y'all just hit on is really important, though. So, like, we recently discussed strip clubs, and obviously what happened with COVID at the beginning of strip clubs. There were many stories of, like, strip clubs coming up with
drive-thrus,
inventive ways to keep their clientele coming and to keep their workers getting paid. The drive-through was one of the main ones. Eventually, though, that's like, come on. There's only so much you can do. Yeah. So a lot of people turn to OnlyFans. A lot of dancers, and just artists in general. That's the thing. There's this overlooking or overpowering image on OnlyFans of like it's all about sex and nudity and porn. But that's not necessarily the case. You could technically use it for any purpose you wanted to get support from your audience, just like we use Patreon, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
So in the case of strippers, models, actors, actresses, people who, the work they were doing isn't there anymore, they need a place to get money, right?
Right.
Which is one of the reasons y'all jumped to the platform, is it not?
Sure.
Because once your regular modeling gigs, the events that you were getting to go out and do for money are gone, you need a way to plug in the gaps. And that happened to countless industries last year as a result of the COVID stuff. But for sure, it created this new situation, this new world where that element of entertainment that men seek out, mostly men, women seek it out too, was gone and then moved to the internet, right? Mm-hmm. So like OnlyFans is almost in some ways for a lot of dudes, it is the new strip club.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They don't go to the strip club anymore. They go to OnlyFans and spend $100, $200 a week or whatever, dropping on their favorite models, artists, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And even at the strip club or men who hire prostitutes, they're at the root of it, like, sure, they're wanting to get the job done, but they're also looking for connection, to be heard.
Right.
And that is what is offered on OnlyFans for most.
And that's where the more intimate connection comes in, right? And here's a really cool divider for OnlyFans. It doesn't exist elsewhere. I have a comedian friend. I won't say his name. He complains routinely about people that follow him but don't interact with, that will like his posts,
followers?
But they don't do anything to support him. They're just absorbing his content. So no likes, no comments, no reshares, nothing. They're just there to take, is what he feels like. Well, this sort of gives you the opportunity to cut those people out, right? You can see directly who is tipping me, who is paying me, who do I need to give attention to, who is actually someone who is supporting me and we are getting the even exchange of like you give me money and I give you my service.
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely weed out your true fans, your true followers. And I think, for me on a very business-ended marketing side of things, it was about how do I build, I don't know if you've ever read the essay on 1,000 True Fans, 1,000 True Followers.
No, but I can barely read anymore.
But essentially it's, creating following, which I'm sure you have here, Ross, with your show, that is so involved and invested in Die Hard that they basically will be with you through the thick and thin, like, through your journey, and they're really, really invested. And that's how I like to be a fan to others. So I don't know, for me, that was really fitting. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to build a tribe here, basically.
Yes.
And it also needs to be able to support me. I believe in mutually beneficial relationships. Like, that's just necessary. There needs to be a give and take in every relationship. So maybe that's like the realist side of me. But then the more, what is my dharma and what do I want to do with my life side kind of clicked on when OnlyFans presented itself as an option for me, where I was like, I've been doing all this work to absolve myself of like shame around my sexuality from my like, Catholic upbringing, all those domestications that came with me. And I'm at this place where someone just said, hey, this is an opportunity to make money doing something, but you have to be able to like hold any of that shame and decide what to do with it, because a lot of people are going to throw it at you. You know?
Yeah. And even the dudes who are paying for it.
Totally.
Which is one of the more
some of the most demeaning stuff comes from them. Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I've actually, okay, so like, y'all are familiar with Mia Khalifa.
Yeah.
Friend of mine.
Yeah.
Big OnlyFans following now. But she actually uses her platform in a hysterical way that I haven't seen anybody else do. She takes the worst DMs, responds to them, fries the dude, and then posts it everywhere. Yeah. And it's become this thing now with her. Well, that's not for everybody, but for her, especially with the level of toxicity she's dealt with over the course of her career, she has now empowered herself to sort of use the hate and the like the shit, the toxicity that she has to deal with is now content.
Yeah, and to teach people like, hey, this is what
talking was like
internet
this.
troll.
And
yeah,
this is what we deal
does.
with.
Yeah,
this is the shit that we have to get.
Yeah, and that's
it's weird.
That's a big piece of it. But I think Jade and I both have gone into this like OnlyFans world going like, okay, we're gonna take a lot of shit from a lot of people, and we're gonna kind of be burned at the stake, so to speak.
And strangers.
Yeah.
But can we, because we've done a lot of work, obviously, with our podcast alone, just like trying to eliminate shame in our own lives.
Yeah, we both definitely have shame wounds and shame triggers. So it's become also like work to
testing us.
To when that is triggered, to be responsive instead of reactive and show like, because otherwise we're still operating in shame.
What do you mean by that? Be responsive instead of reactive.
So we have a good little skit coming out on this where I'm dressed as a man that'll be on our Instagram.
Y'all's fucking sketches, man. Crack me up.
I got Jade dressing as a man now. We call her Jade Man.
It's really good.
What was your
Mansadies.
Mansadies, yes. Yeah. That was...
If you have a better name for me.
Thank you for that.
If you have a better name for me, we'll use it.
I'll see what I can do. This episode of RBP is brought to you by Felix Gray glasses. There are a lot of blue light glasses on the market, but to lump them all together would be like lumping Honda Civics in with Teslas together as cars. Most clear blue light glasses filter 2 to 3% of blue light from screens. Felix Gray filters 15 times more. I've got their Faraday frames, the Nash frames. All of their frames are phenomenal. Wear them every single day, have for a couple years now. Love them. They've got their more advanced sleep glasses to relieve serious daily eye strain, specifically designed for late night screen time to help improve sleep. Felix Gray features highly curated, timeless styles made from Italian acetate for stylish, durable, lightweight, super comfortable glasses. The industry-leading blue light lenses come standard at $95. You can add your prescription at checkout, starting at $145. Finally, a pair of glasses designed for the 21st century. Join the over 250,000 people that report noticeable relief from screen time with their glasses. All you have to do is go to felixgrayglasses.com/RBP to shop glasses that work as hard as you do. That's FELIXGRAY glasses.com/RBP. Free shipping, free exchanges, 30-day money-back guarantee. Felix Gray, they're phenomenal, the best. Protect your eyes. I'm on the screens all day, every day. You're all on the screens all day, every day. It's 2021. We've got Zoom calls. We live on our phones. Your eyes need protection, and Felix Gray is here for that reason. Also, they look phenomenal. You've seen them on my face. FELIXGRAY, felixgrayglasses.com/RBP.
Yeah, reactive would be like you feel the trigger and you lash out. You lash out of the emotion that you're feeling, the shame that you're feeling.
The immediate.
Yeah, the responsive would be to like slow down, take a breath, realize that you're triggered, and then like move that to the side. And you can even say, I'm feeling my shame trigger come up right now. I'm going to take a moment. Or I'm feeling my shame trigger, right now by the tone of voice that you use or by the words that you use, so that you're not placing blame, but you're like taking responsibility for how it's making you feel,
Sure. Owning that feeling and sort of understanding it rather than just having it hit and then,
which is life-changing for your relationships.
It takes you from being the volatile creature, and it's not always shame, it's any kind of anger,
Trauma,
whatever.
Worthiness, anything.
Yeah. So for me, it's like mostly childhood shit. Like my trauma relates to my family more than anything else. And when it comes up, same thing. And it's something I'm working on like literally right now, as of like 2 weeks ago, is to be less reactive and more
responsive.
And just be able to put myself in the moment instead of because my reaction to trauma, my reaction to anything being stirred up is to shut the fuck down.
Yeah,
like
close
completely
down.
shut it all down.
Avoidant.
Suppress it all. Because I can't handle the pain. Like, that's the thing that ends up happening.
Well, you're at least becoming aware,
That's
which is like the
huge.
first step. That's huge. But what you can also do is like, other than just knowing it's like childhood shit coming up, you can like specify it even more. Like, I know my 3 wounds that like get triggered are worthiness, abandonment, and shame. So like, I can even like
I think
pinpoint.
those are mine.
They're most people's.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most common 3.
But I'd say
probably.
I think it's hard for people to get all the way down to that right away unless you've done a lot of work with usually a therapist or your own dream journaling or
I've
whatever.
been in therapy a decade.
And it's still
I'm
hard to get
just
to it.
now to the point where I'm even understanding that concept of like, oh, damn it, there is stuff here that I didn't deal with the way I thought I did.
Yeah. So I
That
think
impacts me every
And
day.
the way that you said you react, where you're like avoidant, if you're with someone who has anxiety and is an anxious attached, you guys are going to drive yourselves like each other crazy, because you're going to be avoiding while she's going to be like needing more,
Sure.
So it's like so powerful for you to know that is your tendency.
Yeah.
so. I just want to hit on for something that all people can understand, whether they know, the attachment styles, anxious and avoidant, and all these other things that we're going to teach actually in our course that I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But that we can all understand how an animal reacts, right? Like with fight, flight, or freeze, this parasympathetic nervous system response. That's what's actually happening when you get into a conversation or conflict with someone. You get triggered, or you're on the freeway and someone cuts you off. Boom, you feel that response system happen, and you maybe the first thing is to fight because you're pissed, Or like you're saying, when you're with your family, or when it comes to family trauma that comes up in you, you shut down, right? That's a freeze response, right?
Right.
Which the primal part of you, that like really core animal part of you, that if you were out in the wild and you were getting attacked by a lion, let's say, the freeze response would have first of all been the thing that makes you, you see a possum or a deer in the road, freeze, right?
Yeah.
Because they think that's the best way for a prey not to see them. It's just automatic. They're not thinking, oh, this car's going to hit me. I'm standing in the middle of the road.
Right.
So that response is actually like critical. So when you do it, it's important to like, first of all, recognize you're doing that. That's great. But then to go, okay, I understand why I'm doing this. And it's not because I'm doing it wrong or I'm bad or, like all these things that we start telling ourselves. Now we have an option to like do it differently, or to go, okay, oh, I just froze, or I just collapsed. And how can I actually show up here instead?
So if you've never listened to these two talk before, you've probably hit the point in the podcast where you're like, oh, wow, I thought this was just going to be about like sexy time on the OnlyFans. And now these girls, I obviously know a lot about therapy, which brings me to my next question. Y'all's whole platform, your whole outlook, the Magic Hour podcast embodies this idea that you can use sexuality, use seductiveness to kind of like, and sensual, like hot content to bring these these horny men in, right? Sort of in a way to make it funny.
Yeah.
We've recently been calling
laugh.
it a Trojan horse.
Yeah. It's the
And
Trojan
then-
horse approach.
Yeah, because then what y'all do is you use your philosophy, your transparency, and your knowledge around therapy, healing, and your own personal struggles to help these men, basically.
Yeah,
to
well said.
become less
That's
creepy and shitty. No, isn't that the concept?
No, I appreciate you saying it so eloquently and articulately.
That's my job.
But yeah, that really is our goal, is to be able to be this bridge from taking, we're consumerizing sexuality on the forefront. And by the way, most men in the world are comfortable with that. Like they're like, yes, I know how to, enter this world of sexuality and be attracted to it and come to it. And then they get there and they go, hey, can we talk about this like shitty day I had? Like on the back end of my OnlyFans. I mean, that's all we get so much
right.
of that in the DMs.
I have to throw this out before I forget. Have either of y'all ever watched the show Arrested Development?
Yeah.
Okay, so
every
what
single
ends up
episode.
happening is there's this prostitute that the whole family uses, the dad and the sons. But anytime they use her, they're not having sex with her. They actually just go cry at like the foot of the bed. And you find out that the dad was using this prostitute that way, and then the son actually uses the prostitute that way. And it's this kind of, obviously you touched on it earlier, there's this innate issue with men in particular where it's like the sexual side of things is often because there's a bigger wanting for like emotional connection and physical connection, right? And that in the case of our consumer culture, that can be bought in some ways.
Absolutely. It needs to be like therapy, paying for therapy, as you know, Ross, critical. Why? Because it causes you to show up for it in the first place. And it makes it more serious. It's not just a wishy-washy, it's not like talking to your friend about something, which is important also, but it's not just venting to your friend. You're talking to someone who actually is going to sit there and care. Why? Because you're paying for the time.
It's like an unbiased third party, and somebody that doesn't know you so personally that they're going to be biased by what they know about you, they're going to give you the actual feedback you need.
Even so, we have done so much work on shame, like we were talking about on our own. Shaming these guys for any of the ways that they come into this work is something that is like not allowed. It's just not in us at this point.
Right.
For us, at least.
No,
For
I feel
us.
you,
Yeah, now other people, it's not, I can't speak for other
Different
people.
ballgame for other people.
Yeah, but, a lot of men, most men are going to come through this because of the culture we live in, objectifying women on the forefront, objectifying women sexually, objectifying us, Jade and I, on the forefront. That's okay. Like that might be shocking for people to be able to hold, but like the fact that this is where we're at as a culture, like people are going to objectify women, like this is where we're at, and to change that overnight, pretty much impossible. We're able to know that we film the content or, do the photo shoots that we do to give out to the public or give out on our OnlyFans because we feel sexy in our own bodies subjectively. So when someone objectifies us or one of these men on our OnlyFans objectifies us, that's their shit. Like, I'm very good at separating, the fact that he might be doing that. That's all his stuff. It's not for me to teach him how to do it or not do it. It's, can you hold the fact that, yes, I am a sexy model, but I also am able to hold space for you. We're able to go into other realms. Maybe it turns into something more spiritual for you, or, you digging up traumas like we're talking about here. Can you hold the fact that maybe you entered this work in a sexy way, but you're able to cross over to that? Yeah.
This episode of RBP is also brought to you by Sunday. Spring is just around the corner, and that means it's time to get the lawn on track. And I know the last thing anybody needs is another complicated or toxic lawn product. Sunday is not that. Sunday isn't just another lawn care product. It's a customized lawn plan that works with nature. They take out all the guesswork at Sunday, all the unwanted chemicals, so you can grow a beautiful lawn that's better for people, pets, and the planet. You get your first box in. It's going to have some Mighty Green, most likely, an iron booster. Everything in Sunday's packaging is incredible and easy. You just hook it right up to your hose, spray it over your lawn over the course of 10 to 15 minutes, follow the instructions, do the next box whenever it shows up. If you're like me and you don't know anything about lawn care, if you've always wanted to be a lawn guy and have a beautiful, luscious green lawn, but haven't known what to do, Sunday makes taking care of your lawn easier than ever. You just go to sunday.com, put in your home address. Their free lawn analysis tool takes care of the rest, all in a matter of seconds. Sunday uses soil and climate data to create a tailored nutrient plan so you get all the stuff your lawn needs and nothing it doesn't. You know I've got my Bruce and my Bella, my two dogs. They need a good lawn. Sunday is making sure they have it. And it's made with ingredients that you can actually pronounce, like seaweed, iron, and molasses, so you can grow better and feel better about it, and I can know my dogs are safe too. Let Sunday take the guesswork out of growing a greener, more beautiful lawn this spring. Visit getsunday.com/Ross to get $20 off your custom lawn plan at checkout and support the podcast at the same time. Have a great lawn this spring, best one you ever had, and support the show. Get $20 off your custom lawn plan at getsunday.com/Ross. Obviously, objectifying women, an issue. But on OnlyFans in particular, I think this is one of the things that's brought to light. Like, it's not just women. There are tons of dudes on there.
Yeah.
So it's that concept is very interesting to me because it's like, look, clearly everybody's willing to pay for sex and sexual content.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any group of people on the earth that has proven like they are uninterested in this type of stuff.
We're primal, hormonal humans, beings.
So what's with the side of it that's like shameful for females?
the
Like, it
side
doesn't
of it.
make why for even for y'all, it's like at this point in 2021, and based on everything we just talked about, and based on what I'm saying, that this is not just a female thing, that it's everybody.
Yeah.
It feels like it's time to like shift that narrative. Like, it's not just that we just do this with humans do this with other humans.
Mm-hmm.
We objectify them, right? It's whatever you're attracted to. If you don't handle it healthily, you end up objectifying some. Could be male, could be female, could be whatever. It just feels like society as a whole has focused so much on the female shame side of it. Like, we almost give it more power, is what I mean, than I feel like it deserves. Which is the end of my rant and brings me to my next question. So you said, like, OnlyFans, you're like, if I was your number one fan 3 years ago, and I'd been following y'all since Bellator or whatever, been up on your Instagrams, and then your OnlyFans drops. Well, that's my wet dream, right? You're getting your number one fans up in there probably as the most supportive financially group of people that are on your OnlyFans, I'm guessing. So, y'all have both been in the game a minute. You have creepy fans for sure. What's the weirdest interaction you've had on OnlyFans so far? Or like the weirdest requests? Because this is a place where dudes also can come in anonymously and make requests at a very personal level that they otherwise would feel afraid to make because they got the internet.
I mean, my weirdest request, which is hard to say, like, call it weird because it's like, what's weird?
I mean, most out there.
Yeah, I think, well, my most common one is like most men request to watch me pee.
Okay.
It's like the most common one for some reason.
That's the most common one.
Yeah.
Dudes
like
want to watch you
in different positions, and like, but it's a lot of it is having to do with peeing. And I'm not sure if that's because there's like this feeling of filth around, like, or if it's because of like something happens with your body parts, it like opens a different way. I have no idea.
Never understood the pee thing.
Yeah. I have a friend that like
peeing on people.
Pees on men. That's like how she makes her main income.
Right.
And so like I know there's like a big market for it, but
this is in TV shows and shit. Like, you'll see there's storylines where it's like, I can't remember what show I was watching, but literally the gig was this person would bring over like a giant plastic thing.
Yeah. That's what,
piss on you. You pay them.
And out.
Typically these guys like sit or lay in a bathtub or something, but I know that like that being my most common request that I have not fulfilled, still Mercedes and I, like we were saying,
Still
like
coming up with the price tag for that one.
Well, we make sure like even if we're not going to fulfill the request, we never shame them for whatever their fetish is.
Important
because
element.
Typically behind their fetish is some sort of sexual trauma, and through fulfilling that fetish is healing, like behind it.
And you're hitting on something that's like at the core of all this, and of sexuality and of the things that we desire as human beings, is just pure psychology, right?
Totally. Not, I wouldn't say all of it. It's not pure psychology, but I'd say a shitload of it. We have to also remember we are made of hormones. Yeah, we're made of hormones.
Designed to.
And not just sex hormones, but we're just made of these chemicals that direct a lot of what we do, whether we have a say-so or not. The psychology, though, is what turns those on and off, right? And then you get into epigenetics and it turns into a whole nother conversation. But to Jade's point, this idea around fetish, and I wouldn't say it's just sexual trauma that it comes from, but trauma generally is a lot of what brings the fetish that we end up with. So like you may have had a controlling mother, let's call it, right? And you have a super controlling mother and you're just like, God, this woman is like an authoritarian, you know, like she's just trying to dictate my whole life. And then later in life, you notice that what you're really attracted to is maybe very masculine women, or maybe you have a fetish for the dominatrix, or you want to kind of play out that role again, but you want to do it in a way that feels safe so that you can, this is what our psyche does. And you're learning this too, I'm sure, Ross, in your therapy, that our psyche basically wants to heal itself. And I know like a lot of this is about healing. A lot of guys are like, I don't have a shit to heal. I had a fine life. Blah, blah, blah. We all think that for a time until we hit usually our 40s and then we have a midlife crisis. But that stuff that we went through whenever we were younger, if it's our mother being super authoritarian, I should say, we may take that into the bedroom and go, can I play this out? This is totally subconscious. Can I play this out in a way where it feels safe enough because it's in a very sexy, safe setting? Or you hire a dominatrix, for instance, who's like a professional at doing this. It's a very safe setting. You have your safe words. You know what I'm saying? And then go through that whole motion, get triggered, and know that you're in a safe enough place. You have your safe word, you have your backup mechanisms, and then move through it. And that's where we heal trauma. So that's actually what happens. And when these guys are coming to us with these different fetishes where they're like, you know, I want you to pee on me, which is a very dominating thing, or whatever. They have other instructions for you, Jade. I don't know, but, you know, they're asking for something that they're probably not even realizing yet. Some of the guys, though, when we start playing, like, hey, like some of the stuff, okay, you were willing to do, and some of the requests we're not willing to do. And in any case, we're going to talk about it. Like, hey, let's get into whatever that means for you.
Right.
Yeah. And so when that happens, some of these guys already have uncovered a lot of it, and then they can really play in that field, and they get really excited to play in that field. Some of the guys are like, nah, I don't want to. And okay, that's cool. Like, we don't have to even go there. But some are like, I never even thought about how this might connect here.
What's a weird thing to acknowledge that most people go through their lives attracted to certain things without ever asking themselves why.
Yeah.
And then when you attain that deeper understanding of yourself psychologically, what it is that makes you drawn to these things, then you really empower yourself to enjoy them fully, and not have that fear and the shame that you're speaking to, which I think everybody carries on some level, especially if you were raised religiously, like you said, with Catholicism. Like, a lot of my sexual shame stuff comes from being raised Baptist, being raised in the church, and being raised in an environment where for the first 15 years of my life, you're told over and 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 over.
If you lust after a woman, gouge your eye out.
Yeah.
Sex is bad.
Masturbation's bad.
You should have as much of your body covered up. Yeah, masturbation was even spoken down to for several years. Then I remember at one point the first youth minister I ever heard say actually masturbating is good.
Wow.
Because it keeps you from going out and committing sexual sin. And I was
Thank you.
My pastor used to say, Jesus could come back while you're masturbating, and then you get left behind basically because you're in the middle of your sin.
Oh
crazy.
my gosh.
That's fucking crazy.
Rough.
And the shitty thing is, now I'm going to think about that the next time.
Yeah, that's rough.
I think
I'm going to have to be sitting there yeah, damn it.
I think that was
work
his
through
goal.
it.
My Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, is going to come down and catch me in this moment.
And he'd
on
be like,
OnlyFans.
he'd probably tell you how to masturbate like a king, which is one of the.
But that programming,
I totally understand.
That programming is why teenage boys are rushing through their masturbation practice and hiding in the closet. Yeah. And then, but a lot of men now in their 30s and 40s are still masturbating like teenagers
or
instead of grown men. And then they're having sex like that too. Yeah, it's quick, it's fast, it's rushing through it to get the job done.
The woman's
so that's something in our course that we're really teaching is how to masturbate like a king as well, how to make love like a king as well. Yeah. I see your face changing.
Okay, because here's the thing, it's
he started squinting at me.
No, so this stuff makes me gets me excited to talk about because it's fascinating to me. I know it weirds people out. And the jumps from the sexy side of it to the psychological side of it are scary for a lot of people where they go, no, I don't want to fuck with that. Like you were saying, there's dudes that you'll hit that are yeah, wow, I'd never thought about that. And then there's people listening who are I want to run away from this as quickly as possible because it makes me very uncomfortable. And I would, if you're one of those people, I would take the time. That's what we're saying here. Ask yourself why. What is it about that concept that makes you uncomfortable? And there's probably something at the core that you can not fix, but sort of realign to make better sense for your adult mind. That whole thing about teenage boys and the shame and the masturbating and the way it actually ends up messing up sex for people, in some cases, their whole lives. Mm-hmm. And then the side of it that women have to deal with, which is what is this? Why are you just jackhammering me until you can come as quickly as possible so that we can all get out of here.
Out of the room.
And we don't know
what
how
the hell
to
is
ask
that?
Because our culture tells us we can't ask and we, for what we want and all
or that there's something wrong with us. Yeah.
But if you can fix all that, or if you can even address it and begin the process of healing it, then everybody wins in a huge, huge way, which is one of the reasons I respect what y'all do so much, because it's not easy to talk to people about sex and then the serious underlying reasons that sex matters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how it makes us who we are in a lot of ways.
And the Western world would call that joining sex and psychology, and in the Eastern world we'd call it joining sex and spirituality. And it's all involved. It's all the same.
And it's sad too that there's so much shame around that, because when sex is merged with sexuality, that's that is one of the highest forms of both. Whereas when
it's merged with psychology, you mean?
With spirituality,
spirituality.
Western
However you
want to
say it.
Sure. But when we don't allow that, that's when it comes out in dysfunctional ways, like sex trafficking, porn addiction, all these things. And so we're furthering like that agenda by shaming it and not allowing it to merge with sexuality. And that's initially why I started the main reasons I started my OnlyFans is because I wanted to merge the two and, you know, get rid of the duality and judgment there.
So let me ask you about this side of it, because we talked about like the strip club is a physical location with physical dancers that you go spend physical money at. A lot of steps that go into that, right?
Yeah.
If you're a dude going to the strip club, it's like that's a night.
Yeah.
You're making a night of it.
Yeah.
You got to go to the ATM. Nobody has cash, or they have the ATM. It's the after the fact. Like if you had a girlfriend or a wife, like you can't be going home smelling like perfume or whatever. There's all these different elements to it that have been the thing that kept that sort of world for dudes in line. OnlyFans removes so much of that in terms of this is a virtual place.
Yeah.
It's way easier to be sneaky with it. It's way easier to develop. Look, it's harder for me to go to an ATM, take out $100 and then throw it $1 by $1 onto a stage than it is for me to go to a website and click, yep, and that's $100.
I'm so interested to where you're going with this right now.
So that element of it is like, it creates, there's more safety, it seems, for sex workers on OnlyFans because you have removed the physical presence of these people who in some cases are, I'll just say, sexually confused or need work on their sexual side of things. But at the same time, you put some, it's like, have you felt a level of worry over any of your customers yet? Like where you're like, this guy might have a problem. Like, if somebody blows
like
$3,000 on you in a month, are you like, oh?
So typically the guys who spend that much on my page have been catfished by someone pretending to be me on other pages. And so they literally think, like one guy showed me receipts that he had bought me a BMW and it was to a girl that was pretending to be me that wasn't me. And he also foolishly gave her all of his information and she hacked his identity. So like there's extreme cases on there.
Yeah.
But at this point, trying to convince them that they're not engaged to me, it's not working. So I have to block them, even though they're the ones spending the most money.
So there are definitely customers that you end up having to be like, sorry, this is not.
It's not beneficial
This is not
for
what I
them.
want.
It's not beneficial for them. I'm making the most money off them, but I don't want to.
Well, here's what I mean. Y'all are very conscious of this.
Yeah.
You're very, involved in that side of things, and your whole brand is built around it. For a lot of these people, and I'll give you an example. What is her name? Bunny?
Bad Baby.
Bad Baby is the Cash Me Outside girl. You remember her?
Yeah.
She went viral a few years back. She's been famous on social media since. She turned 18, and 2 weeks later, she launched her OnlyFans, and she made $1,030,703.43 in a matter of hours.
Nice.
Wow.
Posted it on the internet and was like, check it out. But that's an 18-year-old girl who is now, it's just, like, so all them dudes just waited for her to become a legal age to dump. Like, there's a side of it that
I'm
is
sure
still.
if she started it prior to 18, I'm sure she still would have made that
Yeah,
much.
sure. Well, he's not saying
She
no.
wasn't allowed to.
He's not
Yeah.
saying that wouldn't happen.
So I'm not sure. I'm saying the guys weren't waiting.
Oh, okay.
For her to
I
turn
got what you're
18.
saying. Yeah. You're right. It's not as if the product already existed and they were choosing not to
Right.
pay for it until she turned 18.
Right.
Right.
It's just that when she turned 18, she was allowed to use OnlyFans.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like there's good and bad to everything, and that's what I'm trying to point to here. Is it there are people who try to paint OnlyFans as like, well, it's dangerous because think about like this side of it. And it's like, yeah, but that exists everywhere.
Yeah.
So but
Instagram.
that's
People
what
get
I was
addicted
trying
to
to
that.
say is that I'm trying to provide a space where sexuality does not come out in dysfunctional ways. I'm trying to provide an ethical way to get this release because those other ways are tied to sex trafficking in a lot of ways. And there's shame around them. So I'm trying to provide a space where there is shame removed. It's an ethical way to where like in fact, my money, I donate 10% to end sex trafficking. So it's quite the opposite, you
Right.
know? So that's
Well,
the
it's
goal.
Here's the thing that's cool about it. Like, who are you working for?
Yeah.
For me.
For you.
ourselves.
Yeah.
There's no dude who owns the building or that owns the magazine or the website. It's like, well, obviously OnlyFans is owned by somebody, but they're just taking their cut and you go about your
Right.
business, just like with Patreon or whatever. I mean, that's just way the fuck better.
Yeah, the autonomy of it is super important. I think that's an important thing to highlight for people generally who looking at this trying to make it into some sort of criminal activity. And it's like, look, you can use it. You can use anything to turn it into something bad, right? But there are women, we're some of them, who are doing this from a more conscious place. I mean, I don't like to like dub myself conscious or whatever, but we are definitely thinking about these things.
Today's episode of RBP is also brought to you by Talkspace. When you put your mental and emotional health first, especially in these uncertain times, it has the positive trickle-down effect of making everything else in your life better, which is part of what we've discussed today. Your relationships get stronger, your self-worth grows, and these are just a few reasons why working with a therapist to finally prioritize my mental health has truly changed my life for the better across the board. And look, in 2021, we need as many options, as many tools as we can have at our disposal. Trying to balance home, work, relationships, and everything else is challenging for everyone. And on top of our everyday obligations, we have to deal with underlying fear and uncertainty from the pandemic. With many of our normal support systems, friend groups, dinners, social settings no longer in place, and working with a therapist gives you that support you're missing right now. Having someone to talk through your worries and help prioritize what's really important can work wonders, and now more than ever, it's a good idea to seek out that little extra help for our busy, demanding lives. I wholeheartedly recommend Talkspace for therapy. You can sign up online and start therapy the same day as you sign up. You can text, video, send voice messages to your licensed therapist. It's incredibly convenient to have virtual sessions from the comfort of your home. They let you send and receive unlimited messages with your dedicated therapist in the Talkspace platform 24/7. With Talkspace, you set goals with your therapist and they hold you accountable to make sure you're really progressing. Therapy can help you shift your perspective, find tools to cope in difficult times, and really be a guiding light. And Talkspace is the #1 online therapy platform that has thousands of licensed therapists trained in over 40 specialties, including anxiety, depression, relationships, and more. Your therapist can help you set and achieve your goals. And as a listener of this podcast, you'll get $100 off your first month with Talkspace. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to talkspace.com, use the code RBP at checkout to get $100 off your first month and show your support for the show and for yourself. A great reminder that you are not alone. You never have to be alone with Talkspace.com. Use the code RBP when you sign up at Talkspace.com for $100 off your first month. All right, so tell us about the workshop then.
Yeah.
Awakening the King is this concept that y'all came up with as a way to sort of the next step of this whole idea of using your platform, your brand, building out this thing that leads to positivity and positive change.
Yeah, it launches May 3rd, but right now we have a waiting list. There's almost 700 men on the waiting list. So we're super, super excited that like there are people excited about it with us.
What are y'all going to do? What are y'all going to do?
We are.
What is it if I signed up right now? What am I getting into?
Yeah, it's called Awakening the King Within, and it's basically about doing just that. And so we call it, a lot of men I've noticed as we post stuff about it, they're like, king, like, oh, that's because you think of a king being this like gluttonous, disgusting, I don't
like
know.
the Game of Thrones.
Kind of, yeah. Big fat dude with a crown drooling on himself and drinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yelling
so
at it, yeah.
We're basically redefining what a king means, and we're using Robert Moore's idea of what a king means.
Like a Jungian,
it's an archetype. So
Yeah.
the king is this person, or queen if it's for a woman, who is ruling over his own realm, right? And he's got
Has
his
control of his shit.
Yeah, he has control. Well, control is a scary word too, right? But
I have bad adjectives.
he's able
a centeredness
to,
and a grounding.
yeah, he's able to see the different archetypes within his kingdom. We call it we're going to teach about these, but the warrior, the magician, the lover, and the king. These are major archetypes. There's a lot more of them, but these are the core four.
So types of people you can notice around you.
Totally notice
And
inside
that
of
you
you.
can
And inside of
within
you.
yourself.
So
yeah.
inside of you. So this is the whole thing is about inner work. It's all about introspective
Okay, gotcha.
work. It's about bringing up the inner king, right? And he needs to be the guy who takes the throne. And that's what our work will be doing, is showing men how to basically journey to the throne is what we call it. But that is recognizing these parts of you, these largely, a lot of them will be abandoned parts of you, or parts of you that you've put way too much weight on. Like maybe you play the magician all the time. You're trying to fix everybody around you. Or maybe you're the warrior all the time. You're trying to and you're trying to fight everybody around you. Whatever your archetype that you've put too much identity in. Identifying
the lover who's codependent on every relationship.
Exactly. And you're identifying these parts of yourself, bringing the ones back online that you maybe severed when you probably were a child because they weren't safe to be involved with. And you're also telling the ones that are already taking too much of your identity to simmer down a little bit. And as the king, when you can embody that king archetype, you can actually see when, oh, it's time for the warrior to take place here because this is actually a reasonable place. I need to stand up and hold my boundaries and stand my ground. Or, oh, this is a reasonable place the lover would take the throne and be cuddly and nice and soft and generous.
And that's just one of our calls. So that one call is based off the archetypes. Another call is the 4 turn-ons. And then...
Well, let me touch the archetype one first because I think it's like... Again, it applies so much to like therapy and psychology and this sort of like understanding yourself and stopping to ask questions about why it is you do what you do and why you like what you like and why you don't like what you don't like, et cetera, et cetera. That gives you that ability to, it's really the whole king thing. And like, yeah, you can make fun of it. People calling each other king is still funny to me. Like, what's good, king? But from conceptually, we all should feel that way about ourselves, right? Like we are the king of our own, or queen of our own little domain. And if you don't, which happens to all of us at some point in life. I feel like there were definitely points in my life where I felt a hell of a lot more centered and like at peace with myself within than I do now, for instance. And it's sort of that journey toward, and I mean, if you're another angle here that I really love is like a lot of guys won't go to therapy.
Yeah.
A lot of guys won't see a therapist, won't see a psychiatrist, will not talk to fucking anybody. But maybe this angle works.
But they'll come to our OnlyFans and then they'll go on to the Awakening the King.
That's the whole goal, is to be that bridge.
Right.
But yeah, there's 4 live calls. She covered one of them. We have the 4 turn-ons, which is our first call. And then we have the 4 attachment styles, which we brought up earlier, the avoidant, and is what we talked about. You maybe, and then I typically am the anxious. We want to move towards the secure, and then the 4 traits of like effective leadership.
Well,
so those are our 4 calls.
The four turn-ons. I think your audience especially would love to know that the women. So we pulled a shitload of women. Yeah, we pulled a shitload of women before making
and asked ourselves
this idea of the 4 turn-ons. Basically, what women want in a man most, right?
And there was like money was on the list, success was on the list, status,
physical attractiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
So blew everything out of the water. It was integrity, essentially, this idea, and that's why we bring up the archetypes, because in order to embody integrity, you're going to have to be the guy who sits on the throne and can actually be conscious of what parts of your personality need to come in and take charge.
And
right?
basically, integrity is just like being integrated, like stepping more towards your whole self.
Literally,
you know.
word.
So
And
that's our
Yeah. Also, there's like all the labels that y'all have applied to these different things are important. And I think they can sound silly to some people, but here's the side of it that I think you need to get is like, not y'all, people listening. Some elements of yourself are very difficult to understand. If you can give yourself an easier way to looking at things with labels like that really just it makes understanding yourself is hard as shit. We're very complicated. Human beings need a lot of different things and have a lot of different wants and trauma.
And the labels kind of make it easier.
They make it much easier.
Yeah.
It's just about a willingness to like accept that those are just tools for you to use,
Right.
and that you don't have to sit there and like go full all into the whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
You don't
saying?
have to like identify yourself, the magician or whatever.
Yes, you don't have to do that. It's about learning about yourself and about having a better understanding for what it is that makes you tick. Right? It's easy for guys to look at stuff like that and go, "Oh, okay." But I'm telling you, as a dude who's been like that before, like anything that can help you better understand yourself, and for some people, it'll be this, is huge.
Well, I think when we write off something right away too, because I know I had a tendency to do this.
Oh, I used to do this.
Yeah, it's a protective mechanism, right? Because we're afraid to be more intimate with ourselves, especially men. This is a huge issue we see it over and over in our DMs, like. Being intimate with yourself and slowing down with yourself is freaking scary. It's taught in our culture to be scary, to basically glorify busyness. Don't slow down, like just keep going, move forward. And you're like, well, where the fuck am I moving forward to? You haven't even stopped to think about that.
That's my
life. Like, what is your direction?
That's going to be a major thing in the workshop too, is teaching men to slow down, because in all things, in their responsiveness, reactiveness, in the bedroom, we'll have like in the bonuses, we'll talk about pleasure practices, which like
how to masturbate like a king.
Yeah, because you hear pleasure practice and you think of like a woman masturbating. You don't think of like a man masturbating.
No, I don't.
Right. Most men are still masturbating like teenagers. So we're going to have pleasure practices and all different like breath work that helps with ED and like things like that, all in the bonuses. So we've got a ton.
Which I think that's another inch. Like if you just heard that and you're like ED, erectile dysfunction, breath work, like yeah, bro, there are things that can help you with this shit that have nothing to do with medicine.
They don't come in a silver bullet. Yeah.
A lot
Never.
of the stuff is mental, and it's very easily addressable if you're willing to address it,
That's the thing.
which most of us unfortunately
That's the thing.
are not.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm gonna let y'all do your thing and get on to your next show. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to what the Magic Hour squad does next. Tell us where we can follow you and support you, and sign up for Awakening the King if you would.
Yeah, the website's really easy, awakeningkings.com.
Awakeningkings.com.
And it launches May 3rd, but it'll actually start May 11th. So there's some time to sign up. And then Mercedes is at Mercedes Terrell. I'm at
the Jade Bryce.
At the Jade Bryce. And then we've got
Instagram and Twitter for both of them.
Magic Hour. Yep.
Yeah, and I would just also say that we are taking early bird signups. So that's a super exclusive way to get in, because like we said, we have a ton of guys already on the list, and there are spots are limited. So you can sign up for the early bird list on awakeningkings.com, and it'll give you access to purchase the course a day before it goes live to the public.
Yeah.
So
Right on. Thank you so much. Again, anything else y'all want to let anybody know before you head out?
I just want to say, guys, make sure, you adjust that mindset that sometimes we get into this place that's completely subconscious of like, we end up a victim to life. But the reality is that life is happening for you, not to you. So maybe just make that a mantra, and it will adjust everything else along with it.
And then thanks
that's
for
what I
having
needed
us on for the third
Hey,
time.
of course. Happy to have y'all. It's good to see you again. And like I said, we're excited to see what y'all do next. And I'm stoked to see how the Awakening the King goes.
Thanks, Ross.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That'll do it for today's show, Jared. Different setup with a pretty singular focus in terms of exploring this new platform, OnlyFans, that has taken the world by storm. Hope you enjoyed it. Jared and I will be back Wednesday with another episode of the Ross Bolen podcast. No guests on Wednesday, just Jared and I. And of course, Friday on patreon.com/Ross Bolen podcast with an ad-free exclusive edition of the show like we drop every Friday on Patreon for people who want to support the show and get more RBP. Monday and Wednesday right here on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube. But every Friday we're on patreon.com/Ross Bolen podcast, Jared.
Well, Ross, you said there wasn't going to be a guest Wednesday. There might be.
Oh, there might be. But that's all I want to say about that. Because it's a very special guest.
Unbelievably special. If it happens.
If it happens, which I think it's going to, it will entertain you. I promise you. If you're entertained by Jared, even mildly entertained by Jared, then Wednesday's episode could be one of your favorite ever.
Speaking of which, on Friday, probably this Friday, maybe next Friday, depends on some things. The Bone Zone!
Probably this Friday.
Is coming back to Patreon because we were streaming last night. Somebody said, how many gifted subs to J-Bone for him to do another Bone Zone? Ross said 5. This dude came back 30 seconds later, gifted 5 subs in my stream.
Did I shoot low? Yes. Should I have gone higher? Yes.
I thought you were going to say at least 10.
It was a mistake that I made, but we're here now, and there's just only moving forward. So Bone Zone coming back soon on patreon.com/Ross Bolen podcast. I would be surprised if it wasn't this Friday, but if it isn't, it'll be next Friday.
Shouts to Fresh Bake 3 for the gifted subs. Thank you very much. Follow me on Twitch, Sir J-Bone.
Everybody who's been supporting us on Twitch. It means a lot. Follow Jared on Twitch. Sir J-Bone is his name on Twitch, and mine's
Boss Roland.
BOSSROLE. And I was like, I'm Ron Burgundy. But yeah, Twitch is a really fun community. We have we go live several times a week. Jared and I playing video games, interacting with the chat and our listenership. Sir J-Bone is Jared's Twitch name. Boss Roland is my Twitch name, and we will be back Wednesday for another episode of RBP with a potentially special guest, and Friday with a potential Bone Zone. So much potential, Jared. So much potential this week.
It's the Bone Zone!
Remember, you are not alone. Strength and honor. Peace be with you, and have an incredible week.
J-Bone.
J-Bone.